Okay, so I decided to do a little bit of research before I finally sat down to make this video. There's an excellent article written, it's on thetrace.org, and it's a commentary. It's called Why the NRA Stands Up for Some Black Gun Owners But Not Others. And so I encourage you to, I'm going to put that in the description box, but I encourage you to go over there and um, read uh, that article. So I'm gonna do this video while I'm laying down because that's really the only way I can stay calm and not get to hooting and hollering and yelling. And I kind of want to get away from the old me and transition to the new me because I'm getting older. And it's like, when you're 25 and you're up there cursing up a storm and you're mad and you're passionate, that's all cool. But when you start creeping up closer to 40 years old and whatnot, it's not so cool anymore. And besides, you get the people that, want to, they'll argue that, oh, I can listen to your message because it was just so covered in filth and profanity. That's not to say that I'm going to stop cursing, because I don't think that anything embodies the passion of what you're trying to convey sometimes other than a curse word. But, I digress from that point. Anyway, so I've been floating around social media and I see that Coleon Noir did a video with Killer Mike, or at least that's the only section of the video that everybody seems to focus on. Even though he's had discussions with Killer Mike before, even though Killer Mike has advocated for the Second Amendment in the hands of black people on numerous other people's shows, but him having a conversation specifically with the NRA, and then apparently the NRA dropping the video right as the march was taking place. All these high schoolers, from Parkland that are now flying around the country. Nobody wants to answer who's actually paying for their tickets or paying for their Greyhound or paying. I'm like, shouldn't you still be in school? It's still March, right? Last time I checked, people don't graduate high school until June. So I'm like, so okay, a couple weeks ago the mass shooting happened, and yet now, they're just flying around the country like they're celebrities. Like, you got to ask the question, whether you're pro Second Amendment or not, is who's actually funding that? Who's paying for that? I don't see anybody asking that question. Okay? They're being paid. So I find it kind of hypocritical when people jump up and they want to talk about, the lobbyists and the NRA and manufacturers and stuff like that. That's just the nature of the beast, right? Companies and businesses that have interest are going to throw money a certain way. That's like saying that that Hollywood doesn't support, the ACLU or something like that, right? Or various organizations, don't, whatever groups, want to support and advocate for Planned Parenthood, things like that, right? So, in any event, moving past that, get into the discussion. So, it seems that there's a lot of black folks that have a problem with Killer Mike going up there and uh, even having a conversation with Coleon Noir on the NRA, right? Because they can't seem to separate a goal that black people should have versus the NRA's political affiliation. They can't separate the two. And Killer Mike addressed that in his conversation when he said, you don't need to be my friend in order to be my ally. If we have the same goal, if we have the same objective, then I'm just going to have to deal with you. It's similar to, how you have, black men, who have a problem with feminism in the black community and black women, and then white men who got MGTOW. And, it's like we have that issue of white supremacy, right? Because white supremacy creates a lot of the problems that cause a lot of the interpersonal relationship problems that black men have with their, wife, children, and family and community, right? Because, patriarchy is predicated on what? Patriarchy is predicated on the man being the breadwinner and men collectively as members of that community, controlling the economic landscape of that community where women are dependent on them for their survival. Black women are not dependent on black men for their survival, which creates a lot of disrespect because there's no real reason for them to respect black men, right? So, it's like white men and black men may have the same issue when it comes to child custody and court cases and alimony and everything else, right? Because men get raped in court. White men lose their kids to the court system just like black men do. White men get slapped with all type of alimony and child support and everything else, and having non-itemized payments and stuff like that. Like you can't even see how the woman, spends the money, right? They go through the same thing. I mean, white men have been thrown in jail, for what judges have considered willfully impoverishing themselves, right? Which means like the white man either lost his job and the court will claim that he intentionally quit his job so that he wouldn't have to make payments. And then what do? They throw him in jail. You can find YouTube clips of this, online of the judge literally sentencing white men, to county jail time because they feel that the white man willfully impoverished himself so he wouldn't have to make payments of alimony or child support or whatever, right? Men get raped in court across the board because it's basically, a system of extracting money and resources from men and then giving it to another population and then siphoning that money off for the government, right? Black men and white men both have this problem. But that doesn't mean that there aren't the other issues in the background that make black men and white men diametrically opposed. Again, the issue of discrimination in employment and in the marketplace and stuff like that black men have to deal with when it comes to white supremacy. And white men typically tend to try to ignore and just say, "Oh no, black guy, just join us. You got the same problem with your baby mama and everything." It's like, yeah, I got the same problem with my baby mama because I can't get in the union, because you all got that old boy network over there. You see what I'm saying? So I look at what Killer Mike was trying to say the same way as that, right? You don't need to be my friend in order to be my ally. And to me, it makes no sense. Like he brought this point up about, we're only like what 54 years out of apartheid. That's what he said. And I'm saying I pretty much have made the same statement and the same point where I'm like, we are an ex-slave population. You tell me today or in the near future or 100 years from now, what's stopping white folks in this country who outnumber black people 5-1 from saying, okay, black people, we're going to reinstate slavery. I want you all to, now you all now report to your reassignment slave quarters starting tomorrow and then start throwing black people in concentration camps just like they did the Japanese during World War II. What's to stop white folks from doing that? I mean, we have a really shitty history in this country as it pertains to our interaction with white folks. You know, um, but here's the thing, right? This is what I pick up on, right? And this is my frustration with black women specifically. Because everywhere I go on, left left oriented media, MSNBC, CNN, The Root, The Grio, any sort of these articles where black women have a voice because black women have been given a voice by the left. Black men's voice has been essentially silent, which is why black men like myself resorted to speaking our minds on YouTube, which we essentially no longer can do because YouTube has this great purge where they're trying to eliminate all controversial comment or content, right? And I mean everything. It's not just black people. They're getting rid of the, Colin Flatteries, the white supremacist channels, the red pill channels, the what's that white girl's name that always talks that racist shit? The Southern chick, the Laura Southern or something like that. You know, they're getting rid of gun channels. They're getting rid of MGTOW channels. I mean, they're just getting rid of everything. Everybody's getting slapped with strikes all over the place, which is why I came over to Black Junction TV. They're just getting there's just no free speech. Like there's no space that black people can actually, have a conversation. So that becomes an issue. Um, so what was I saying? Where was I going? I was going somewhere. Um, Yeah, so everybody's getting flagged off. I was going somewhere. Where was I going? I always lose my train of thought. It's such a pain in the butt. Um, but hold on, I gotta remember what I was saying. Okay, I remember. So one of my issues with black women in this gun conversation is because every time I see a black woman get in front of the camera and the conversation is about guns, black women are the most anti-gun group in America, which is quite ironic to me as much as they run around screaming rape and pillage, you know. And notice it's just rape and pillage. It's not it's not rape and pillage and guns, right? The person that often finds himself at the other end of a barrel is a black man, right? The issues in the black community are black men killing black men and white police officers killing black men. Those are the issues. And so I'm sitting there and I'm looking at these black women up there, and they always talking gun control. And notice the whole federal ban gun control always comes up after white children get killed, not after what's going on in Chicago. 17 kids got killed in the high school and in one place. Oh my God, oh my God. I'm like, 17 people got killed. More than 17 people got killed in the month of February in Chicago. Like, I mean, you just throw out blanket statements like that and you'd probably be accurate. Or more than 17 black people got killed, young men got killed, across the country between the ages of 20 and 24 or something like that. Within a 3-day period or something like that, right? There's no call to action, when it comes to that stuff. I don't even know why black women get riled up a lot of times when it comes to, the gun control issue. Because, first off, they always want to talk about banning assault weapons, and assault weapons don't have anything to do with what's going on in inner city black communities. Most of that violence is handguns, right? The black community has had metal detectors in it for the last, 30 some odd years, right? Since the 80s. When's the last time we had a mass shooting in the inner city? When's the last time we had a mass shooting at any of these black schools, right? That are just so horrible that white teachers have to fear for their lives when they're driving to teach in those areas, which is not true. The black people of those communities are typically highly protective of the people who are actually taking time to teach their kids because they already know that people are scared and nobody wants to do it. You want to go out here and you want to get fucked up, go to an inner city black school and start fucking with a white teacher. Go ahead and just rob the white teacher or fuck with the white teacher, and I guarantee you're gonna have people from that community and that neighborhood who are gonna be out there trying to find you. Okay, especially with the teachers that spend extra time and buy things for the students. I've seen these white teachers who've gone the extra mile, who didn't grow up in the inner city, they didn't grow up in the ghetto. You know what I mean? They really see what's going on, and they go the extra mile for these kids. Yeah, go mess with one of them and see what happens. you know but I'm just saying, in these inner city schools, right? When's the last time we had a mass shooting? No, scratch that. When's the first time black kids have had a mass shooting in a predominantly black school in the inner city? Never. Now, Some would argue, well, it's just not in black people to do that. We don't get down like that. And I'd agree with you. We don't get down like that. Metal detectors or no metal detectors, we don't get down like that. Even before the metal detectors were put in the 80s, you didn't see mass shootings in black schools. Doesn't exist. Never happened. Never happened. Right? But you already know. I'm just bringing up the metal detectors because I'm saying, how come white people aren't jumping to say, hey, let's put metal detectors in our school? Oh, I know because the mere sight of metal detectors will traumatize white children. As somebody else suggested to me, why not just put it in the doorway? So that way you can't see it. Incorporate it into the doorway in some of these new schools. There you go. Problem solved. Right? But that's because white people don't really want to have any conversation about the pathology that's going on with America's white population. It's the same with the opioid epidemic, right? The black community doesn't have an opioid epidemic. That doesn't affect the black community. That only affects the white community. Why? I'm sure that we can dive into the reasons and whatnot, and the entitlement that young white men have, and the fact that America is been deindustrialized. So if you don't go to college, if you don't have some sort of super sophisticated degree, like, you ain't shit. You can't support your family. You can't do this, and so people fall into depression and start doing drugs and things like that, right? So I'm just saying there's a pathology behind it that nobody really wants to be honest about and examine. They want to talk about, oh, we need to ban AR-15s. No, you need to ban white males from schools, because that's who we see shooting the place up, with various exceptions. When black people are angry and they want to kill somebody, typically they have a specific target. They don't kill everybody. They have a specific target. There's a handful of examples where black people have gone on mass shootings, but typically they revolve around them feeling some sort of wrong against them in the racial context. Not, oh, the girls didn't talk to me, so I have to kill everybody, or, oh, I was picked on and bullied, so I have to kill everybody. Like, it's real specific what they're mad about, right? And they don't go to a school to go shoot the place up. No, they go to the job that they feel that they were wronged, and then go and shoot the place up. Like that black guy that worked at what was it? The black guy that worked at it was in Connecticut. He worked at like a beer factory or something like that. Shot the place up. I don't know if it was Connecticut or Vermont or New Hampshire. I forget which one it was, but it was way up there. Okay. Um, but the thing is like this, right? When it comes to black women, right? It's not necessarily their fault why they're anti-Second Amendment, because let's think about it. And we've talked about this before. Essentially, this is the irony of it. Black women, when it comes to black men with guns, are no different than white people. They're no different. They view a black man with a gun with the same fear and the same anxiety as white people view a black man with a gun. They only can narrowly associate a black man with a gun, handgun or rifle, with something negative, because that's what they're seeing in their community. See, the problem is that the black community doesn't have a strong patriarchal community. Where you at least in the white community have white men who are in the home, they're present, they're taking care of their families, again, because they have the resources to do so. Where in the black community, you don't have that. You have black men, young black men, trying to supplement their income, or the income that they don't have, through the narcotics trade, right? And so you have young black men who are illegally carrying guns, because that's just the nature of the beast. You have to defend yourself. It's pretty much better to be caught by cops than to be caught by your enemy unarmed while you're walking out there on the street, right? Because you get into all that personal stuff once you get out of the money of drug dealing. You get into somebody's brother got killed, and now they running around looking for people wearing certain colors. They don't care who it is. They going black. If you wearing blue, or if you wearing red, or whatever color your gang is, and you just so happen to be walking down the street, and somebody else's brother got killed by whatever color you're wearing, chances are you gonna get shot at. Or if they just want to come through and take over the block, you gonna get shot at. It's the nature of the beast. But I'm saying, for a lot of black women, that's the only uh association that they have with black men with guns. A primary example is Nuance Bro did a video, And at the end of the video, Nuance Bro did a video about he was going around and asking people about the whole gun control issue. He went to the march. Stupidly, pretty much everybody in that march was protesting in ignorance because they couldn't even articulate what specific laws they wanted to act. They didn't even know the laws that already existed. Right, so you get these people that want to do this sort of redundant doubling down on laws that already exist, like domestic abusers shouldn't be able to have a gun. That's already the law. You know, fully automatic weapons, they should be banned. Fully automatic weapons have been restricted since 1986 through the Hughes Amendment presented by a Republican, Ronald Reagan. You know what I mean? Like there's just they're ignorant of it. And it shows you how much people can be influenced by television and the media because people are intellectually lazy and they don't take the time to sit down and research and look up anything. They simply just embrace whatever they're told, that taps into their emotions, and they run with it. So it's like we live in this world of anti-intellectualism, and in this world where people don't take the time to look up anything for themselves. So in any event, there was a woman at the end of the video, and she was holding up a picket sign, and she was saying how you know, she knows cousins and people in her family who have died. I mean, she's just yelling in the mic, and I'm like, see, that's the problem, because she was from New Orleans. Where in the white community, a white woman can make the connection between her white husband having a firearm and there being a bump in the night and him going downstairs with a flashlight to investigate, which isn't the smartest thing to do. It's better to hunker down in the room and have a gun aimed at the door and call 911 and say somebody's in my house, right? But I'm just saying, she has that sort of idea, that whole white man standing on the porch with his wife and child behind him, with the mother embracing and holding the child, as though she's shielding the child with her body, while the white man stands on the porch with his AR-15. That's an actual image that white women can reference. That's not an image that black women can reference. The problem is that black women only see themselves on the receiving ends of guns, even though they are literally the least likely to be on the receiving end of a gun. But they can only see themselves on the receiving end of an AR-15 that's not being used to shoot up black inner city schools. But they can't see themselves or a black man as the shooter or the defender on the other side. They can't see that. They can't see it being linked to any sort of protection or defense or self-preservation, because we don't have enough black fathers in the home at the collective level in the community. So there is no hunting culture. There is no gun culture. I can go on YouTube right now, or I can go on Google and pull up images of white men teaching their white daughters how to take down a doe, which is a deer. Okay, teaching their daughters how to shoot. Where I learned about firearms? I didn't learn about it from my father. My father said, even when he grew up, he was like, guns in the hands of black men was associated with nothing but negativity. I mean, this is the whole push behind the 1968 crime bill, or gun control act, where they got rid of all the Saturday night special guns, the ones that black people could afford, the Lorson, the Jimenez, the Cobra. These are the 25 ACP, 32 ACP type of guns, direct blowback, kind of like a high point, little miniature high points, basically, made out of basically pot metal, not stainless steel. It was cheap and affordable, and they worked. Right. But after, all the assassinations and everything that was taking place in the late 60s, right around 1968, okay, then, they implemented, the gun control, and the gun control, disproportionately affected black people. They came through and they said, oh, if you're a felon, you can't have a gun. And then did what? Proceeded to lock niggas up like it was just, some sort of carnival to just lock black people up. So slap black men with a whole bunch of felonies. Now we can legally discriminate against them, and they can't keep and bear arms. A lot of people, they want to talk about and reference the NRA. Like, there's a clip of AM Joy, and I watched it. And personally, I can't stand AM Joy, but AM Joy, she was up there and she was talking about how, all the NRA, has historically been against black people, right? So, she didn't even cite any examples. She just made a blanket statement. And, it's like this, right? Because she was talking about who Killer Mike affiliates and aligns himself with. Doesn't he know that the NRA has not been the best friend of black people? Yes, bitch, he knows that shit. He knows that shit. But again, you don't need to be my friend to be my ally. But see, there's a couple things that are going on here simultaneously. First off, let's talk about the NRA and what the NRA has done for black people, right? A lot of people don't do their research. I'm pretty sure the NRA supported Robert F. Williams, who was a black man who was basically teaching black people to arm themselves after a black woman who was a maid was raped by a white man, and they went to court, and the white man was I believe he was acquitted. And so after that, he started talking about black people arming themselves. And you can go on YouTube and you can find the clips of Robert F. Williams and, guns. He was pretty much one of the first voices when it came to, black people being serious about self-defense. Okay. Oh, trying to think what else. Then you have cases like the people who were living, the residents who were living in public housing in Delaware, um, where the NRA fought for them to have the right to be able to be armed in public housing. That was black people. Shaneen Allen, who was the single mother who crossed over from Philadelphia into New Jersey, and she thought she was doing the lawful thing because she was ignorant of the law and didn't check to see which states had reciprocity for concealed carry. And so she got pulled over, I believe, for speeding. And when the cop came to the window, she decided to notify the police officer that she had a firearm in the vehicle. Some states have duty to notify. I believe states like South Carolina or North Carolina, they have duty to notify. Other states, you don't have to notify. I carried in Philadelphia for many years, and I remember I got pulled over one time. I had the gun on my hip. It was a female police officer. I did not notify her that I had a firearm on my hip. Why? Because I didn't want to escalate the situation. If I'm getting pulled over for a traffic violation, then give me the traffic violation and let me get the fuck on. Okay, unless she asks me to step out of the vehicle, then I will notify her that I have a firearm and then say, well, how do you want to handle this situation? Because I do have a firearm on my hip. How do you want to handle this? Right? But I'm saying if it's just a traffic stop and that's all it is, I'm gonna keep it a traffic stop. They don't need to know. But it depends on how people want to handle the situation. Some people prefer to hand them the ID and the license at the same time. You got to feel it out yourself. But anyway, um, Shaneen Allen got pulled over. She notified the police officer. And in New Jersey has a homie don't play that policy. And so in New Jersey, they basically tried to throw her underneath. She lost her job. They want to throw her under jail, send her to jail for 3 to 5 years for violating New Jersey law and all this other stuff. And, they didn't want to give her like any sort of leeway. Like that's just how Jersey did. What Jersey does, Jersey's like one of the worst states because what Jersey does is Jersey tries to make examples out of every infraction of firearms law. They try to throw the book at every person that violates the gun laws. That way, they can, say basically it's to be an example, which is essentially a threat to other people. Like you better not try it because if you do it, we're going to throw the book at you, not considering any other, circumstantial factors, right? We're just going to throw the book at you, right? So she got caught up with that. I believe the Otis McDonald, which was the man in Chicago who got black man, who got rid of the ban on handguns. You know what I mean? And don't get it twisted. Personally, I think, it's like what I say about countries. Countries don't have friends, countries have interest. The NRA doesn't have friends, they have interest. Does that mean, like, if they can use a black person as a means to an end, the NRA is going to do it. That's what they do. But for black people to sit there and say that that the NRA has never come out, for a black person, again, even that article says they come out for certain black people, they don't come out for others. But even the article is kind of misleading when you look at it, because the NRA comes out for cases for black people where they'll use the black person's case in order to further the pro-Second Amendment agenda, in order to get the courts to make a decision so that the Democrats can't make laws about these sort of things that have already been judged upon in the court system. The NRA is not in the business of making statements about what happens out there in society. Now, personally, do I wish they would have? Do I wish they would have came out and said something about the Trayvon Martin situation, or said something about Philando Castile? Yes, I do. I do wish they would have came out. That would have eased the tensions between the NRA and black people. But the problem is as the article even pointed out, it would alienate them from their base. Their base is basically old white men. That's what the base is, which is right now why the NRA is losing the cultural war. They're losing the cultural war. The problem is, think about it, old white men. Forget black people for a second. They're not even cultivating young white men. I see more young white men out there with those anti-gun marches, all these young white boys that are talking with a lisp that are beta male and effeminate as hell, than I see young white men that are pro-Second Amendment. Okay? I've been to NRA meetings, or at least tried to get into NRA meetings, and it's nothing but old white men. That's what the meetings consist of. And the NRA has done a piss poor job of communicating, that they're trying to change. Although there is the most obvious olive branch out there that nobody seems to consider to be an olive branch, which is Coleon Noir. Right? If Coleon Noir didn't exist, and I said, okay, what do you want the NRA to do in order to reach out to black people? What do you think black people's first suggestion would be? Well, I think you should have a black spokesperson. You don't have any black people up there speaking about the Second Amendment. Hello? Isn't that what they did? They got Coleon Noir. And yet black people are bitching, calling this man a coon. And I'm like, how is he a coon? I remember people, personally, I've been watching Coleon Noir for years. Probably 8 years, maybe 7 years, something like that. When he made his channel, he was just doing gun reviews, and they picked him up. Okay? And I mean, think about it. Here you got a young, hip, right? Articulate, because everybody loves to throw around the articulate black man who's a lawyer, and he's pro-gun. He's not supposed to exist. In my opinion, this is the main reason why not only did John Oliver not mention him in his NRA special that he did the other day, but AM Joy didn't mention him. She was like, Killer Mike had a conversation with the NRA. No, Killer Mike did not have a conversation with the NRA. Killer Mike had a conversation with Coleon Noir, who is a representative of the NRA, who is a host of the NRA. Two black men having a conversation. And again, this is where I got a problem with black women. And I'm going to say this about AM Joy. Who the fuck are you to question a black man about who he decides to align himself with as it pertains to the belief systems that he wants to instill in his black children? See, again, this is the problem with the broken black community, and there not being any patriarchal fathers in the home. Okay? Because AM Joy and many other black women, see, they take issue with the fact that you had Killer Mike up there making the statement of, if you walk out of school, to go and engage in these protests, you can walk out of my house. See, there aren't enough black men who are either in the dominant position in the household as the breadwinner, or there aren't enough black men who are even present in the household for a black woman to have to even deal with that sort of situation. See, the black woman is in a very unique situation, unlike any other woman on the face of the planet. She is the only woman who is essentially not dependent on her own race of men for her economic survival. She gets everything that she wants from white men, or other races of men, if you want to say that. But essentially, she gets everything that she wants from white men without white men being involved in her day-to-day operations. So she gets resources without having to answer to a man. This is why a lot of black men have their issues, with black women, even in terms of how, this prolonged exposure to not being dependent on black men has literally changed the whole mentality and psyche and mindset of black women across the board. So a black man talking about firearms, a black man talking about self-defense of his home and everything, that's unusual to black women. To hear about a black man standing out there talking about, I need a gun to protect myself from any motherfucker out here. Whether it's the system of white supremacy, racism, racist cops, Ray Ray and Pookie on the block, child pedophiles in the community. I scratch my head off the times when I hear black people who are anti-Second Amendment, because they always narrowly see the Second Amendment through the scope of as though the NRA is driving through the black community, tossing out handguns out the back of an ice cream truck, just handing them to anybody. When has the NRA ever advocated for illegal gun ownership? Right, I watched the video of Thought Crimes. Thought Crimes was up there, and the black woman who's on Thought Crimes, who was irritating the hell out of me, she was talking about illegal gun ownership and trying to tie it and link it to the NRA. Aside from trying to link the mass shootings that are happening in white suburban communities to inner city violence that's going on that's related to the narcotics trade and handguns. And again, I don't even know why anybody can't see that when black people support these sort of gun laws, these gun laws disproportionately affect black people and throw young black men in jail, like what New Jersey has, which is essentially the Graves Act. The Graves Act is mandatory minimums. Doesn't factor in anything or any factors of why you had the gun, how you had the gun. Anything. You don't even have to commit a crime. Mere possession is enough to throw you in jail for 3 to 5 years. Mere possession. You didn't do anything. You didn't wave the gun at anybody. You didn't rob anybody. You didn't shoot anybody. Nothing. You just simply had the gun on or near your person or in your vehicle 3 to 5 years in the state of New Jersey. And that gun law was specifically tailored to lock niggas up. And guess who supported it? Black people. Black people. And then they turn around and then complain about how, oh my God, the justice system is so unfair and locking up all these black men. And then getting over to white folks, it's like when you got the NRA and NRA plays this balancing act between supporting police officers and white folks. And I always ask white folks all the time. I'm like, you all talk about tyranny a lot. Praise the Lord and pass the ammunition. Right? They talk about tyranny all the time. And I'm like, black people get, you all saw what happened with Dallas, right? Micah Johnson felt some type of way about Philando Castile being shot and killed by that police officer. Now, if you ask me, I think Philando Castile should have stopped moving and stopped reaching when the cop told him to stop reaching. I watched that video over several times. And he's like, I'm not, but he's still moving. And I'm like, dude, stop moving. The cop says, don't move. He's like, don't reach for it. And he still reached for it. Now, do I think that the cop was, just a scared bitch ass? Yeah, I do. Because it doesn't make sense for somebody to show you the license of their legal gun. That should have diffused the situation right there. But it didn't. All he saw was black man with gun equals bad. But I'm just saying, you got all these white people out here. They love the cops. Cops are their best friend until we're talking about tyranny. And they don't realize that if tyranny were to happen, if shit were to go down, again, 93% of police officers are Caucasian. If something were to go down, It's going to be white men shooting at white police officers. But they don't see it that way. They don't interpret it that way. And then when it comes to black people, whenever tyranny affects us and we feel wronged and we take up arms, it's like, oh, nigger, you better not, nigger. You better not. I, as the white man, I fire the first shot. I decide when tyranny happens. You don't decide. You shoot after I shoot. Because it's always cool for a black man to be armed and join a white man's cause that a white man gets to define when it starts and when it ends. That's always cool. White men don't have an issue arming black men when we go off to fight their enemies. They don't have no issue with that. They had no issue with World War I, the Civil War, the Revolutionary War, Vietnam, war in Afghanistan and Iraq. None of that. They didn't have a problem with giving us guns to go kill somebody else that they got a problem with. But as soon as we got guns for our own self-defense and our own protection, now all of a sudden they got fucking problems. Now all of a sudden when a black man stands up and says, hey man, this is the third time I got pulled over this week. Can you do something about these fucking cops? Silence, nigger! Silence, nigger! How dare you question our police officers? How dare you question our boys? You see? And that's what creates a lot of the animosity and whatnot, because we're not viewed the same. We're not treated the same, even when law abiding, even when going through all the appropriate channels. Right? So that's part of the problem. Right? Again, another issue that the white community doesn't have. The white community doesn't have an issue of white police officers shooting down white civilians. They don't have an issue with that. But the black community most certainly does have a disproportionate issue of that. Now, I'm not going to say that there aren't reasons why, like example, higher crime in black areas. Right? But again, if you really want to address the gun issue in black communities, again, our issue is not mass shootings. Our issue is poverty, because poverty leads to people saying, you know what, I got to make some money. I got to survive out here. I'm going to sell these drugs to make some money. Okay. Survival does not wait for assimilation. Survival does not wait for acceptance. Survival does not wait for white people to finally stop being racist and decide to treat us the same way that they treat themselves. Survival does not wait for that. So, I ask myself, when it comes to, all the black people's anti-gun, behavior, I'm like, where does this shit come from? And when you really look at it, it comes from basically two areas. One of the people who are assimilationist, the people who, there's a lot of people who are really scared, who really fear, they just kind of like, they do this sort of like fear hope thing. I hope, they don't want to rock the boat. I hope white people just stop being racist and accept us and we can just move forward, because I don't really want to have to go out there and have to kill somebody or hurt somebody or have to defend myself. I don't want to see that very ugly day. Right. But it's funny because I see all these. It's like even my own mother, when it came to Donald Trump being elected, I've been saying for years, I'm like, yo, there's a lot of racism out here. Right? Because anybody who's been cruising in the debate section and in the race section on YouTube, all the way up to the lead up to, Donald Trump's presidency, anybody in that conversation could have seen that, like, how divided the country was getting. Because when people can hide behind an anonymous screen name, they speak the truth about how they really feel. And I already knew how white folks really felt about, Barack Obama being president, and this sort of, white people are being discriminated against, and the blacks are taking over, and we got to make America white again, and this country is ours and everything, right? So I was seeing all that stuff. And so when Donald Trump got elected, I wasn't surprised. I was like, why are you surprised? Okay, this has been going on. And then all the tiki torch white supremacists and white nationalists came out, and you had all these black people like, oh my God, I didn't know that the world was this racist, right? Because they had just been narrowly, brown-nosing Barack and Michelle Obama, thinking that, we're moving forward. No. Again, the world is very tribal. If you think that white people are going to look at a black person, and the stupid thing is Barack Obama is biracial. He's half black, half white, but they still looked at him as a black man because he married a black woman, right? But I'm saying, white people are never going to see a black person or a person that they perceive as non-white in a position of power and collectively believe that they have their best interest at heart. You got to know that. You got to know that. It's the same way that we'll question whether, some white person has our best interests at heart that has authority over black people. We will always question and look for anything to examine when it comes to a white person being in a position of power over black people. But I mean, I get it. I get why black women operate this way, because seriously speaking, black women think that they're supposed to run shit in the black community. They believe that they're supposed to run. How dare Killer Mike stand up there and talk about how he's going to kick his kids out of his house because we're a gun family. And if you walk out of that school, you can walk out of my house. See, they had a problem with that. Black women have a problem with black men putting their foot down because at the collective level, black men aren't in the position to put their foot down on anything. This goes back to the conversation I had a long time ago with Cap, about, being the only patriarchal black family, you and one other brother on the block being the only one in a neighborhood with 15 houses on each side, row homes and whatnot. And out of all 30 of those houses, you and another black man are the only head of household, patriarchal homes in that whole neighborhood. If you think that you're going to do or say anything in that neighborhood, from a authoritative standpoint as a black man, you got another thought coming. Not only will those women put the bug in the ear of your wives and try to do that, pull a foo on you. Did you know you could take half? Did you know you could take half? Eddie, I want what's coming to be, right? They'll have her on that shit. Not only that, but I'm saying anything that these women disagree with, even about how they're dealing with their own sons. You the only real men in the community, and you start seeing women doing things, the sissification, the pussification, the wussification, whatever, to their black sons, and you disapprove of it as a black man, and you got something to say about it. These women will fight you on it. And again, you're outnumbered. So how can you operate in a community like that? You can't. You see? And so again, since black women have been given this political voice by the left that's why you see all these black women that are linking up with the progressive movement, which is why I find myself becoming more conservative by the day. That doesn't mean I co-sign every aspect of the right, and I don't know that there are a whole bunch of racists over there. I most certainly do. But but looking at the black community and what I want to see fixed and repaired, I want to see strong patriarchal black homes. But you're strong, independent black women and you're feminists. They don't want to see that shit. So that's why they go up there and they advocate for all this LGBTQ, RXYZ, all that type of bullshit, and extreme form, all this feminism and everything else, right? That's why most of these women are, not wed and whatnot. Even though I know AM Joy is wed. But I'd like to see the type of man that AM Joy's husband is. Is he a beta male or is he a real man? Because the women are slick because they try to present beta males as alpha males in order to try to discourage alpha males from being alpha males. They'll be like, my husband is a great husband and he's not intimidated by my success. They'll come off with that bullshit. It's like, it just makes no sense. Like, women do not need to be in the driver's seat when it comes to this. They don't even need, fuck the driver's seat. They don't even need to be in the room when black men are talking about firearms and self-defense, because the women are not going to be able to wrap their heads around that based on the orientation of how they've been raised and the environments in which they've been raised, where black men are not present or not the final say or the authority in the community, because they don't provide enough in order for black women to be dependent on black men for their survival. So the black men, the handful of black men, who are about that who are patriarchal, and I mean the handful, because it's only a handful. We still got brothers running around talking about, oh man, that bitch is gold digger, man, it ain't about the money. We still got brothers running around talking like that, trying to run shit on a bitch's dime, and it doesn't work like that. So, they don't need to be in the conversation. Black men are going to have to, go about this by themselves. And see, the problem, the one last thing, the issue I have with Killer Mike on this is he folded. And I can kind of understand why he folded, because the NRA doesn't pay his bills. Okay? The women are out here, the anti-gunners right now, they're being very smart about their approach and what they're doing. They're not just out there marching. They made that mistake in 2013. They're hitting people in the pockets. Okay? They're going out there and saying, if you support the NRA or anybody affiliated with the NRA, we will not buy from your store. And so all those people, Amazon and Google and all those people, they're like, oh my God, you're not going to buy from our store. Oh my God. Disavow all NRA and Second Amendment people. Oh, even dicks. Oh, we're not selling guns to anybody underneath the age of 21 anymore. Right? Just making all these sort of blanket statements. Ignoring certain things. Just imagine if you went off and you joined the Marines at 17 or 18. You went and served 2 tours in Afghanistan. You come back when you're 20 and you try to buy the rifle that you went off, or that's similar to the rifle, semi-automatic, that's similar to the fully automatic version that you were fighting with in Afghanistan. You go to buy the gun and then they tell you, we're not going to sell you this gun. Think about that. Think about how offended you would be. I'm old enough to go off and fight and die for my country, but I'm not old enough to own a firearm. The whole being 18 and being adult thing is just such bullshit. It's such a limbo period, and now they're just threw on another factor to try to make it worse down in Florida. So let me get this right. So I can engage in binding contractual agreements. I can be emancipated from my parents. I can go out there and vote. I can buy tobacco. I can go off, and die for my country, but I can't drink alcohol and I can't buy a firearm. Yeah, okay. You see what I'm saying? Like, this shit is just retarded. And I'm saying threw in no exemptions for people who were serving their country. Just no exemptions. Shit's insane. I most certainly would not want to be 18 years old again, but I guess, do I have anything else to say? I guess I'll just want to say this, in defense of Colio Noir, you got to pay attention of how the left does not want to acknowledge this brother. You really got to pay attention. They do not want to acknowledge, because, again, guns are supposed to be old, fat white men. It's not supposed to be young, hip, articulate, know what the fuck they're talking about, can actually reason through why they feel the way that they feel and express it, right? Which is essentially being articulate, right? They don't want that to be the new face of the NRA. They do not want that to be the new face of the NRA, because that may inspire young black men to want to get involved in firearms. Same way that they want to shut down all the gun channels on YouTube, because it may inspire people to want to get involved in firearms, not just in America, but also abroad. Right? Because now you got movements in other countries where they're questioning their gun laws. Hey, how come we can't defend ourselves? Right? We got Muslims running around, running people over with pickup trucks and whatnot, and we can't defend ourselves. Right? We got the shootings that you saw in France, whether it be at Charlie Hebdo or the other one where they were going around the restaurant district and shooting people up, and stabbing people and stuff like that. You live in a violent world. It is what it is. But women always try to align themselves and make themselves somehow the moral compass and whatnot, because, they try to play that that position of, I'm this ethereal, goddess that, I don't believe in violence because women are more morally superior than men, and we have to keep men in check through our moral superiority. That whole, all that arrogance, and women do very, very, I don't want to say women do very little, but seriously speaking, as it pertains to their agency in society, women do very little. Okay. Women don't pave the roads. They don't build the infrastructure. They're not the majority of the police. They're not the majority of the defense arm or anything else like that. Like, men get shit done. And so you have women who, because I have a degree, they think that they're going to run around and, manage everything because they believe that they just intrinsically have more wisdom than all the men that are the ones that are actually doing, all the things that are getting done. Right. I'm going to manage this. Right. You all are just the construction workers. You're just drones, a part of my beehive. And that's what a lot of these women push out here. And then they hide it underneath the guise of gender equality, when it's really, no, we're mad because how dare Killer Mike go up there speaking from a patriarchal standpoint. We don't subscribe to patriarchy, right? And then black people just got to reevaluate their whole position on throwing around the term coon. Really, the black man who's advocating for black people to arm themselves, Coleon Noir. And I'm saying that, you really got to hear the dog whistle. You got to understand the dog whistle. White people use dog whistles all the time when, they're up there, talking about, whatever they want to talk about, whether it's Carlson Tucker or whatever, and Fox News and Sean Hannity and Bill O'Reilly. They speak in code, right? Because they know certain things will get them in trouble. And here you got a black man who's essentially the spook by the door as a member of the NRA, okay? And everybody's giving him hell, Oh, he's a coon. I seen the comments. Oh, he's coon, and this brother's coon. He's a coon. He's an agent. He's a part of the NRA. How dare he? And you can't see it for what it is. And see, this is why almost all agendas in the black community get usurped, because black people can't see the forest for the trees. Right? It's like the same thing with Oprah, how black men went out there and they were criticizing the shit out of Oprah. Oh, Oprah's she's a Negro, but when she's a mammy, they was out there talking all type of shit on Oprah, myself included, and then come to find out that Oprah's been sending black men to college for years. I'm sorry. I didn't know she was doing all of that. I didn't know she was doing all that. Same with Nelly. Nelly, you, what is it? What do they say? What do women say? You disparage black women and you objectify black women in your video when you slid the credit card down that black woman's ass, right? Nelly also has been investing in the black community, sending people to college. It's like people don't know what these people are doing behind the scenes. And a lot of these people, they rubbing shoulders with powerful white people and whatnot, right? And so they can't do it in the open, right? Because then they'll make the white person that's actually, helping them, or it's like kind of like a quid pro quo sort of situation. Then the white people are like, wait a minute, you're helping black people, you're helping that black person. And then all the people that are in that base are going to start making noise and whatnot. So it's like everybody's got to help their own communities underneath the radar. They can't help it on Front Street, especially in a situation where you're the minority as a member of that organization or that group. I'm saying, seriously speaking, if you look at everything that Killer Mike said up there on that microphone, right? Where could Killer Mike have said what he said on that NRA TV show with Coleon Noir? Where could he have said what he said on MSNBC or CNN? Where could he have said that? He couldn't have said that. He couldn't have said that. He couldn't have said that you're a lackey of the progressive movement. He couldn't have said that on CNN or MSNBC. Are you crazy? He couldn't have said that. But yet the NRA allowed Coleon Noir to, do whatever he did. It's my guess that the NRA actually gives Coleon Noir a little bit more leeway to say, do, and operate things than people actually believe. And you know why I say that? because there's been certain things that, like you'll have, like a lot of black people, they got issues with Dana, right? And how Dana says, certain things, right? And I've had issues with even how Coleon Noir has said certain things. I was really frustrated with the fact that he had, I would go over there and look at his comment section, and he would have white folks underneath his comment section that were, oh, Trayvon Martin is a thug and all this other stuff, and Coleon Noir, being a black man, didn't address it. What I wanted him to do was I wanted him to make a video of him walking around with his Glock 19, and he's got this dude following him in a raincoat, looking all spooky and shit, okay, on some it shit. Might as well throw a red balloon in his hand, right? Following him around in this yellow raincoat, and Coleon Noir having to decide, like, damn, should I pull out? What should I do? Which is basically what Trayvon Martin had to go through. And put it in the context and the perspective of a black man that they actually like. You see? But I'm saying he didn't do that. But also, he didn't do, many other things. That's a hard sell for a lot of people. Like it's like people want you to speak on everything, and sometimes it's just better not to speak. Sometimes it's better just not to say anything at all. Right? And a lot of people take that as a silent cosign just because they didn't say anything. It's like the same with the NRA. You know what I mean? Like I said, I got a problem with the NRA not saying anything about Philando Castile. He's a legal concealed carry gun owner. But then again, when has the NRA ever spoken on a police shooting? I'm saying if you can find an example, please find it. But when has the NRA ever spoken on a police shooting? And again, they even have to maintain that same balance with, their white constituents and police officers. Because think about it. Again, from my cold dead hands, the Second Amendment is to fight tyranny. Well, guess what? Who brings tyranny? Police. But yet there's this funny relationship where to white gun owners, police are their best friends until they're not. Again, police are their best friends until we're talking about Waco, Texas. Police are their best friends until we're talking about Ruby Ridge. Police are their best friends until we're talking about Clive Bundy and, those people up there in Oregon, with the grazers and with the cows, and they wanted to graze on federal land. Then all of a sudden, the government and government officials and government agents are not their best friends. You see? The problem is that people don't really want to fully acknowledge what the Second Amendment is about and what the Second Amendment is for. The Second Amendment is for self-preservation, self-defense, self-protection, and to specifically shoot at government agents. That's what it's for. That's actually what it's for. Because if you're fighting tyranny, then that means you're shooting at government agents, but nobody really wants to say that thing. If you really want to shut down an argument when somebody says, "Oh, it's about militias," first off, it's not about militias, because you tell me what the Second Amendment being extended to free slaves has anything to do with a militia. It doesn't have anything to do with a militia. The 14th Amendment basically gave black people all the rights that white people had. Now, that doesn't mean that the KKK wasn't terrorizing black people and trying to deny black people those rights through Jim Crow and all that other stuff. But what I'm saying is that's what the 14th Amendment was designed to do. Black people ain't had nothing to do with militias, but yet they could go out and get guns like everybody else. What was it? Was something I was going to say? There was one more thing I was going to say about. Oh, the preamble of the Declaration of Independence. Anybody who wants to question the Second Amendment and what the Second Amendment is actually for, just go over there and look at the preamble of the Declaration of Independence, because it says right in there, it is your duty to overthrow a government that is tyrannical, not for transient reasons, but it is your duty. It says it right in there. If it gets so unbearable, you are to overthrow said government. Now, with that said, how would you go about overthrowing said government if you at the very least did not have small arms? Now, again, I understand for a lot of people, this has never happened. This is some fanciful shit. Again, it was put in there as a Just in case scenarios. The same reason you have insurance. Well, I'm a good driver. I'll never get into an accident. Well, why do you have insurance? Well, I have insurance because it's mandatory. Okay, you can argue that it's mandatory in your state, but again, the likelihood of you getting into an accident in your lifetime is pretty high. Most people do get into at least one car accident, whether it's a fender bender or not, or something more catastrophic in their lifetime, and that's why they have, you know, um, that's why they have, insurance. So the Second Amendment is insurance, and I just can't wrap my head around how black people, have the history that they have in this country and ignore, the Second Amendment like that. I'm saying at the very least, okay, you got problems in your community with Ray Ray and Pookie. Well, if you had a bunch of armed black men who had, involved in their families' patriarchal homes, you could clean up your black community. Hey, not on this block. A bunch of armed black men. Like even when you want to talk about, let's talk about a black gentrification of a community, or actually let's not call it that, because then you'd only be displacing the people who are already there. If we were talking about black people going into a community and cleaning it up and moving back into the inner cities and whatnot, black educated professionals and everything else, I wouldn't tell those brothers to go in there and move into those places empty handed. Hell no. Hell no. I want brothers to be armed. And if you look at it, just to show you how much these laws affect black people disproportionately, right? Look at Chicago. There was black people, large population of black people there. They were denied their Second Amendment rights. New York denies you your Second Amendment rights. New Jersey denies you your Second Amendment rights. Baltimore denies you your Second Amendment rights. California denies you your Second Amendment rights. Pretty much all black people outside of the Deep South are denied their Second Amendment rights. Most of these gun laws were put in place after, 1967, after the race riots. That's when these laws were put in place, because niggas with guns scared the hell out of everybody. Going back to A.M. Joy's point about the NRA, and I know I'm dragging this video out, but going back to her point about the NRA, and they created laws that denied black people access, to firearms. And people are basically specifically talking about the Mulford Act. Okay. And granted, that was a different time, but it's funny how the people on the left always want to talk about the Mulford Act and talk about how the NRA supported the Mulford Act, which was basically Ronald Reagan, putting in law, basically shutting down open carry, because that's what the Black Panthers were using. They were using open carry and marching on the state capitol, to try to, engage in dialogue and get in front of the cameras and all that other stuff. Scared the hell out of white people, especially back then. Black men walking around with guns in California and Oakland and San Francisco and all that other shit, scared the hell out of them. So it's funny how the left will always, they'll bring that up. But what they don't bring up is the FBI informant Richard Aoki, who was basically tasked with arming the Black Panthers to shift popular opinion against the Black Panthers, just as how now they try to shift the popular opinion against Black Lives Matter. Now we got the reopening of COINTELPRO. Now we got the BIE investigations, despite the fact that you got white nationalists and white supremacists running around all over the country making bombs and shit. Okay? They don't tell you about Richard Aoki, who was a Japanese informant used to, I don't know, I think he was Vietnamese. I don't know why. Richard Aoki sounds like a Japanese name, but I'm pretty sure he was Vietnamese. But anyway, he was an informant for the FBI who was used to arm the Black Panthers to instigate armed conflict against the Black Panthers and police. And that's how the Mulford Act ended up coming out. Because the Black Panthers weren't armed prior to Richard. I'm sure some of them had guns, but Richard Aoki was crucial to arming the Black Panthers. And if y'all don't know, back in 2009, he blew his head off, and apparently he had a Black Panther suit on one side of the bed, and he had his FBI informant suit on the other side of the bed. I don't know if that's true or not, but he basically blew his head off back in 2009, committed suicide. Now you tell me what type of demons he has. Again, you can go and you can find. I'm probably going to upload it to this channel, but you can go on YouTube and you can find several documentaries on Richard Aoki. Okay, the government has never been friendly to black people in this country, and it kills me at how. Again, Malcolm X has already warned black people about this. It kills me how black people, especially black women, can't seem to see this. They can't seem to see this. At how, the government, has been against black people and seem to think that, oh, it's just the NRA. I'm like, no. This whole system is a system of white supremacy. And there's allies, here and there. You can look at universities like Meharry, which was funded by a white man because, he got lost or stuck somewhere, and a black family helped him, and he vowed that he would come back and help those people. And he basically, became wealthy and then came back and then helped the black people create a medical university. Things like that. There's allies here and there, But trying to think if there was anything else I was going to say, about all of this. I think that's pretty much it. I just can't wrap my head around, people jumping up, oh, he's a coon. Colin Noir's a coon. I'm like, how does the black man that advocates for black people being armed become the coon? And then the black people talking about, NASA says you don't need no guns, become the pro-black people. How the hell does that work? And it's wild. It's like we're stuck between a rock and a hard place. On the right, you got white folks that are damn near forced to advocate for black people being armed in order to defend their own rights. Right. But the irony is they'll tell black people that they need to, trust the police, and that how dare you question the police. Right. Meanwhile, they're stockpiling guns and ammunition against said police and said government. And then when you go over to the left, they're over there telling black people that, the police are racist. The police are racist. The police are coming to get you. The police are racist. And then tell black people, yeah, but you need to trust the police with your safety. What type of sense does that make? Does that make any sense at all? No, it doesn't. So again, there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff going on with why you see a lot of black women standing out there on the forefronts talking about gun control. And the main reason, in my opinion, is that, and this is an opinion that I've, discussed with other people. But the main reason is, we don't have a patriarchal black community. There aren't enough intact black, patriarchal homes in the black community, for black women to really look at, black men as the go-to for their defense and their protection. Because if they did, then they would just be completely out of the conversation of black men arming themselves. Because again, we don't have a mass shooting problem in the inner cities. What we do have is we have our narcotics trade problem and a violence problem tied to the narcotics trade, because there are few, if any, economic opportunities in predominantly black communities. Get rid of the poverty. If I'm telling you, if I could go into the ghettos and hand out a bunch of $50,000 and $60,000 jobs to black men in the ghettos, the violence in the black community would disappear overnight. Again, we don't have a mass shooting problem. We don't need to ban AR-15s because some black man walked into an elementary school and shot the place up. We don't have that issue. We have a poverty issue. And it's really disgusting to me the way that you have a lot of not only white folks on the left, but black women on the left who are trying to conflate the issue between inner city drug related violence that is due to poverty and the lack of economic opportunities and conflate it with mass shootings of precious white children in those suburban schools, which is the only time that we get a national narrative on the conversation. And then they have the audacity to stand up and talk about what organization doesn't care about who. Anyway, that's my video.